like to welcome everybody today to the meeting of the Academic and Strategic Initiatives Committee. As you know, this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. So please, it's being live streamed on the YouTube page. So please make sure your video is on so when we're voting, people can see you vote. So Heather, will you call roll?
Sure. Would you like me to wait? Maybe President Thompson can give his update first.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay.
So, why don't you, President Thompson, do you want to go ahead and kick us off this morning?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Happy New Year to everybody on the committee and all of our guests. It's good to be here. It's good to be back in another year living. You know, it's good to be with the council. And this is some good times, I guess, and interesting times, but I want to concentrate on the good times. We have had, as you well know, the governor's budget address. We've also had House Bill 1 put up, and that's the budget from the House. Now we think there will be some changes possibly in that budget after the governor has issued his budget. But I'm happy to say that this is, either one is the best budget we've had in higher education in a long time. We obviously have to get it into the Senate's hands, and hopefully they'll approve or give us a little bit more of what we need. But with the ask that CPE had, the governor actually lived out all of those asks, almost. And in some cases, did a couple extra ones, like the Better Kentucky Promise. And the Better Kentucky Promise is basically making community college free here in the state. We already have a work-ready scholarship, but he added some more money to it to get several more thousand students engaged in higher ed. Instead of putting money in the performance funding pool, he put it into the base allocation and actually put $67.5 million in the first year and $90 in the second year. Now, that probably won't make it through the House or the Senate. It probably will go to performance funding, is my guess. Asset preservation is there. There was money for Bucks for Brains. So as a whole, that budget looked really good, and we were happy. The House's budget looks good too. I mean, they put $50 million each year. We're hoping to see if they can increase that a little bit. That goes into performance funding. Asset preservation is there, as well as a few other things. There are some things that are not there, but we're hoping once the governor's budget has been looked at and compared, that we get a little more of that. So that's the good news. This is the best budget we've seen in a couple of decades. So we're happy with that. Excuse me for my scratchy throat. We're also happy to see that the strategic agenda, as you all know, you guys approved it, is rolling out, and we're getting a lot of attention on that. We're spending some time. I spent some time last week with the Hunt Institute talking about, COVID recovery and vaccine mandates. I'm happy to say that all of our institutions, as of this week, are open face-to-face. We did really well over the last couple of years in mitigating the crisis with our positivity rates at a much lower rate than the communities around us. I think UK is somewhere like 90% vaccinated now with their students. So as a whole, we're continuing with the way we did this past fall. So school's up and running, and the hope that we will see the variant actually decrease over the next several weeks, I think, is a positive. I think the CDC and the national folk are telling us that as well as our state folk. We were able to get a little money from Dr. Stack and the Cabinet for Health and Human Services to help our campuses really do some testing, push the booster and vaccines a little more to get more people vaccinated. Kentucky has been one of the states that we did not mandate vaccines, but we've had some good returns on our campuses without mandating vaccines. So that, the good news. I won't give you any bad news today, Madam Chair. I think you can read about that in social media, but I just want to give you a quick update on the budget. Our next meeting, we'll have more updates, I'm sure, but I just wanted to give you that. So unless people have questions for me, that's all I have to deliver this morning.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So I did not see anybody else join.
Yes, we have quorum now. If you want me to do roll
Okay.
call.
So Heather, will you please do roll call?
Certainly. Dr. Mohammed Babar, Mr. Colby Burks, Dr. Kelly Ellis,
Present.
Miss Lori Harper,
Here.
Miss Karen Hoover,
Here.
Lucas Menzer, Mr. Richard Nelson,
Here.
Miss Vidya Ravichandran, Mr. Kevin Weaver. I see him miming here. We have 5 out of 9, so we have quorum. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. So in your board packet, there were minutes from our last ASI meeting. They were in your materials. Are there any objections to those as presented? Hearing none, then they are approved as distributed. Now we'll move on to our proposed new academic programs. We have 3 new programs to review for approval today, and the campus representatives are here to present on those. Ms. Melissa Bell, will you please introduce each program?
Yes, thank you. So we do have 3 programs today, 2 related to health fields and 1 focused on the needs of adult learners. So let's start with Northern University with the proposed master's degree in vascular perfusion. So NKU is proposing this program in an allied health field, more specifically cardiovascular perfusion, which deals with the operation of a heart-lung machine during cardiac surgery. So graduates of this program will work with and under the direction of surgeons and anesthesiologists. The program is planning to seek accreditation, and the graduates can be certified by the American Board of Cardiovascular Perfusion. One thing to note is that local employers, including those related to St. Elizabeth, University of Cincinnati Health, and Cincinnati Children's Hospital, reached out to NKU about the need for this type of program. So we have I believe we have 2 representatives from NKU here today. We have Dell Stevenson, who's the Dean of College of Health and Human Services, and Jeremy Engel, who's the director of the proposed program. So I will turn it over to NKU.
Well, thank you, Melissa. And yes, my name is Dale Stevenson, as you can see my name tag on there. And thank you, fellow council persons, for allowing us to present. As Melissa said, we are proposing a 2-year, 70-credit program leading to a Master's of Science degree in cardiovascular perfusion. Melissa mentioned that these are highly skilled practitioners who become educated, be licensed perfusionists, and operate heart-lung machines. Couple of therapies that they use. Melissa mentioned cardiopulmonary bypass, creating a bloodless field for surgery. But increasingly important is the second therapy, and that's it's called Ecmo, extracorporeal membrane oxygenation therapy. But what that is that's where you use the heart-lung machine to provide a therapy to enhance blood oxygenation and CO2 release. And this has become increasingly used in COVID. And what that does is it provides time for recovery of lungs and the heart. And that leads directly to the demand for this program, because the enhanced scope of practice for perfusionists, especially under Ecmo, we found that as it increased the vacancy rate across the nation and locally. Now, in healthcare fields, when you get to a 12% vacancy rate, as we've seen that and higher in nursing, that becomes concerning. Right now in the nation, there's a 20% vacancy rate for perfusionists, and locally in our tri-state area here, there's a 21% vacancy rate. We have 61 licensed perfusionists in Kentucky. There's well over a need for 100 plus. So that's why they reached to us to come out to pursue this degree program. Now, the thing about this program, it's an excellent feeder for biology students, i.e. pre-med students who don't necessarily get into med school, for respiratory care students who are licensed respiratory therapists, for exercise science. So it's a great feeder program to come into a field, become highly skilled, and make an elevated salary, quite an elevated salary. The other opportunity with this is a degree completion. Many programs around the nation are either bachelor's of science or certificate programs. We would be the 9th program in the nation to be a master's of science in cardiovascular perfusion. This allows us to elevate the educational opportunities of those with certificates and bachelors to get a master's, and it becomes a degree completion opportunity. A lot of questions surround why didn't the UK College of Medicine, why isn't it housed there? Well, I think, as Aaron remembers, Dr. Thompson, that 2018, I came to NKU as the dean because the state of Kentucky invested $97 million into a health innovation center with a state-of-the-art simulation center for exactly this reason, to create programs such as this. Now that we have a branch campus of the UK College of Medicine at NKU, we will pursue using adjuncts out of their College of Medicine right here in our program at NKU. In terms of return on investment, it's an $850 per credit price point, and we expect to see a $600,000 net profit in year 5. That completes my brief presentation.
Any questions?
Madam Chair, can I say something quickly?
Yes.
Dale, good to see you. By the way, this is exactly the kind of innovation that we need to be seeing in Kentucky. We know the Ecmo machine has been used widely, and I just got to reading about this. As you know, I'm the chair of Baptist Health. I mean, this is going to grow tremendously. So, Dale, it's good to see this kind of programming coming into place. You guys got a really nice place actually to build these sorts of innovations. So good job.
Thank you.
All right, any other further discussion?
I have a question. Dale, this is Richard Nelson. I'm curious what you anticipate as far as enrollment in your first year after this is approved. Any idea on the numbers of students that would take advantage of this?
Yeah, due to the highly skilled nature of this program, it's a great question. The typical cohort size, entry once a year, is between 12 and 15 students. We expect to have 12 students in our first cohort. We've been aggressively pursuing this. If we can get everything approved, we hope to welcome our first class in August, if we can go quickly enough.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you.
Mine's not a question, it's just a comment. Just in the readings, I guess I was surprised the lack thereof within our region for this. So I think this does definitely bring something to Kentucky as a whole.
Yeah, I will say historically, Christ Hospital over the river in Ohio had one. When you get in that, put a program in a medical health system, there's conflicting priorities, and they didn't last very long. And so there was one in our region, but they left several years ago.
Right. So given this is the only one from Northern Kentucky University, I'll take a motion if there is one out there.
Laura, I move that we approve this program.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Kevin. We have a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to the University of Louisville.
Yeah, so our next health-related program is at the University of Louisville. So this proposed program in health teacher education is designed to prepare existing healthcare professionals who want to pursue an academic career or existing healthcare faculty who want to enhance their teaching skills. So the program is focused on curriculum design, learning assessment, and other teaching and learning concepts. It builds on a successful and growing graduate certificate in the same field, and there are no other programs like it in the state. Stacy Sainer, who's the Director for Health Professions Education Programs at Uofl, is here to provide an overview.
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. And thank you, Council. I appreciate being here today. I just want to give a very brief overview of our health professions program. We currently have a graduate certificate that is a 12-hour certificate that is widely used by the faculty on the health sciences campus, whether that is medicine, dentistry, nursing, and I also get people from across the river who come in and take part in our graduate certificate and other clinical professionals from the area. But this is looking for a master's degree in health professions education. And this is intended for clinicians who teach in an academic setting. Our clinicians, all the clinicians, have learned to be really great providers and take care of patients. But the one thing that a lot of them were never taught about was education, how to be an educator. And so this master's degree is a 33-hour program, 15 of which are in the College of Education and Higher Education Administration. Another 15 hours is in conjunction with the School of Medicine and the College of Education, and that is 15 hours in specific health professions education, how to be a great clinical educator. And then there's a 3-hour exit experience where they are either conducting a curriculum review or some type of clinical education research. I will also say that my department, the Office of Faculty Development out of the Health Sciences Center, we conducted a survey in 2019 of about 1,000 faculty here on the Health Sciences campus. 47% of the respondents for that survey said they were either definitely interested or interested in such a program. And that doesn't include people from Bellarmine or other people outside of specifically U of L. As far as when you think about employer demand, it is really not uncommon these days for fellowship program director, residency program directors, deans, assistant deans, vice deans of education. In those recruitment ads, it says not only do they need their terminal degree, but they are also asking for either a master's in education or a master's specifically in health professions education. And one of the last points I would like to bring up about this idea is that our clinicians are really under a lot of pressure these days. They need to have patient turnover. There's a lot of financial issues within a clinical system. And the time that our clinicians have with their learners, whether it's a medical student, a resident, or a fellow, is really starting to diminish. And one of the things that one of my faculty has said over and over again that he really appreciates about this is he is able to take learning science, the best that we know about learning science right now, and maximize his time that he has with his learners. And he really also likes to talk about, even though not every clinical faculty would undergo the certificate or take the master's degree, this will help create an environment of professional development to kind of ensure that our learners will have the skills and the information that they need to, really create the next generation of healthcare providers in the state of Kentucky. And I'm really happy to take any questions that you may have, and I'll leave it at that.
Any questions? Okay, given none, do you want to move on to the other University of Louisville?
Yes, so the last program today is a Bachelor of Science in General Studies. This online program would address our strategic agenda priority of focusing on adult learners. There are other general studies programs in the state, but this is the type of program that we like to see at every campus to show the commitment to adult learners. The target audience for this particular program is adults in the Louisville area and former Uofl students who didn't complete their degrees. It's not for new students. It's for those who have 40 credit hours or more. In addition, the program would allow for these students to demonstrate college level learning that's been acquired outside the classroom and apply that credit for prior learning to degree completion, which is another idea that aligns with our statewide strategic agenda. Linda Fuselier, who's the Associate Dean of Undergraduate Education in the College of Arts and Sciences, is here, as is Joe Grant, who would be the Program Director. So I will turn it over to them.
Hi, thank you. I'm Linda Fuselier, Associate Dean in Arts and Sciences at Uofl. And the General Studies program, as Melissa mentioned, is for adult learners. It's a very specific population, adult learners that have at least 40 institutionally accredited college credits already, but have stopped out of college for about 2 years for many different reasons. The curriculum consists of existing programs. It would have the general education requirements, the college requirements, and then students would be able to choose from among online majors, online minors, and online certificates. They can complete the entire program online, as is important for adult learners. In addition, they would have the opportunity through prior learning assessment to earn up to 27 college credits for prior learning on the job or in the workforce. And we will be using the same system for determining prior learning credits that our existing program in organizational leadership and learning in the education program uses. So it's been modeled after a very successful already existing program. We see that there's going to be student demand for this, especially in our urban areas and especially for underrepresented minority people who are changing or transitioning in the workforce. So this is specifically designed for adult learners who are really already in the workforce and are looking to get or finish their bachelor's degree so that they can move forward in their career. And we're pretty assured that the jobs that require bachelor's degrees are increasing both locally and nationally. And in Kentucky, at least, or actually in Louisville, there are over 81,000 adults that have some college credits and no degree. So there is a large pool that could potentially, a large pool of students that could potentially benefit from this program. We also see that our online programs at U of L have been increasing over time, and about 27% of the students in those programs are in underrepresented minority populations. So in particular, we think that this will benefit very specific populations. We also know that nationally there's a preference for completers to come back and want to learn skills rather than just a bachelor's degree, let's say in arts and sciences. But one of the things that we've done is we've positioned this to be very flexible so that we can actually offer both. So a student could take a certificate program that's completely online in a skill that they're interested in, for example, in healthcare leadership or GIS, and combine that with an online minor in something like sociology or psychology. So they would get both the traditional sort of liberal studies, arts and sciences kind of degree, but also have the opportunity to develop very specific skills. The employer demand, we figure, is really related to increasing jobs that are going to require a college degree by 2025. In 2019 to 2020, 88% of the job postings in the Louisville metropolitan statistical area required a bachelor's degree. And we're expecting to see those numbers increase by 10%. The general studies degree it's a different kind of degree, and it really is a completer program. But when you look in the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it is one that is appropriate for a very wide range of fields, including management and sales and business and financial operations. So it is a useful degree. We're actually going to be using existing programs on campus. So we're not creating new programs per se, because students will actually be choosing focus areas that are existing minors or existing certificate programs. And I'm not sure, I don't see Joe on here, but Joe is going to be the director. Joe is a professor of criminal justice, and criminal justice does have an online degree program. And he actually himself, oh, there he is. Joe, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and say hi.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Yes, my name is Joe Grant, and I am a professor in criminal justice. And my role here today is just try to give a more applied approach of why this program is important. I went to Indiana University back in 1980 for 3 years, flunked out of school. A year and a half later, I get hired on the police department. 9 years later, I go back to school to finish my degree. That degree, I just wanted to get a bachelor's, and basically that was it. But I went on to get my master's and eventually got my a PhD. I retired from LMPD in 2008, but one of the things that I'm proud of is that I had an opportunity to put the defensive tactics program together for LMPD. 90% of that knowledge that I got came from what I got out of my bachelor's degree. When I got back, the first 3 years, I don't know what I got out of that except a bill. But when I finally went back, 90% of that program, that was back in 2003. They're still using the program, and they've asked me to revise it and continue to use it, for the police department. And to go back, my degree, the second time that I went back to school, was in general studies. And that broad base of knowledge that I got from the various courses allowed me the opportunity not only to develop, have the knowledge and the skills to put a program together like that, but it also gave me opportunity. It gave me the opportunity to go ahead and get my master's and get my PhD, and eventually when I retire, get a job at the University of Louisville. And the crowning point of today is get a chance to talk to all of you about what I did. And I think that the reason why I tell you that story is to show the importance and the potential that this program has for individuals like myself who, for whatever reason, whether it's flunking out of school, whether they can't afford to continue to go to school, but wanting to go back and have that opportunity to have a program that suits their needs, that is as accommodating as we can by being online, that will help them get that degree so they can advance in their career. And it wasn't long that former Mayor Abramson talked about the need to, have these type of programs in our university and our community to help educate the community for, economic reasons. So it's benefited me. I believe that it will be a tremendous benefit to the university and for those individuals who, like myself, for whatever reason, had stopped, going to school and have that opportunity to go back and finish their degree and take advantage of the knowledge that we have to share with them.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? I agree.
Madam Chair, I do have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. Good to see both of you. I'm curious about how many total credit for prior learning hours are you willing to give in this course, number one? And number two, will there be any competency-based elements to the course?
So in the program, as students enter the program, what they would do is go into a course that is designed to help them develop the portfolio that they would then submit to a committee to have it reviewed for these prior learning assessment course credits. They could earn up to 27 credits, and the competency parts, it's actually a fairly detailed process. For example, if you're a veteran, that process actually is through ASFAB and other ways that you can document learning on the job. But in particular, we're going to be looking for evidence, not of job experience, not of work experience, but rather of learning on the job. So the competency parts for that would be evidenced by things like certificates or program completions and workshops completed and things like that. And that is all a part of the same sort of system that our organizational leadership and learning uses to determine the amount of PLA that any one student would be awarded. So the student creates what is called the, basically, I'm just going to call it a portfolio. And they could have, depending on the evidence they use to document their competencies, they could earn credits at a beginner or intermediate level or an advanced level for college credits. And we're thinking that 27 possible credits is pretty good. It's a little bit lower than our OLL program, but we did confer with them, and it seems that they do not have students actually that get their, I think they can get, I don't know, up to 40 or something like that in that program, and they rarely have students actually meeting that. But so they would be actually, the students would have to provide evidence and documentation of their competence in particular things that they're going to get these learning credits for. Does that answer your question?
Getting any ACE credit?
ACE credit, you know, so it could be different different avenues that the students can use, and I do have ACE as one of them, but also we had listed documentation that they can use by going into ONET. I could pull this all up.
No need to pull it up.
Okay.
I appreciate the portfolio of learning and not just straight into, you know, I think there needs to be a hybrid or a triangulated way of doing this. The certificates are a great way along with the portfolio. I'm anxious to see what you all do here. I appreciate also starting at the 40 credit hours. We've got to get these folks like Dr. Sterling, who somehow got caught into that proverbial place that so many of our students get caught in and not know how to continue later on. So I appreciate that too. I'll be closely watching this. I'm anxious, as I've closely watched your org course that I even invested in, as you probably know. But
yeah, that's great.
I'm anxious to see it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, we have two programs from University of Louisville. One is a BS in General Studies, and the other is an MS in Health Teacher Education. Made a motion if there is one, or we can have further discussion.
So moved.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Motion carries. All right, thank you, Ms. Bill. That finishes our academic programs for today. So now we're going to move on to the cultural competence. Oh goodness, a lot of C's in this. That's all I'm going to say. Cultural competencies credentialing certification request. I am so sorry. I butchered that one today. From the Western Kentucky University. Last summer, the committee and the council approved the competency credentialing certification process. And today we have our first institution that will be requesting approval. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Dawn Offit, please.
Good morning. As stated by Chair Harper, the last time I came before you, it was to request approval of the Cultural Competency Credential Certification process. And that process, of course, was subsequently approved. And since then, I'm so pleased to announce that we have had our first institutional cultural competency proposal that was submitted for approval, that being from Western Kentucky University. They submitted their cultural competency program, and this particular program is designed for faculty. The objectives of this proposal are that through participation in what they're calling the Inclusive Teaching Academy, faculty participants will be more able to effectively support an inclusive learning environment, intentionally approach difficult interactions, and promote the academic success of diverse students. In the Inclusive Teaching Academy's curriculum, it is composed of 4 key content modules. Module 1 is integrating inclusivity into course setup. Module 2 is course and classroom climate. Module 3 is teaching with transparency. And Module 4 is grading for equity. The proposal, which was included in your meeting materials, has been reviewed by the Cultural Competence Advisory Committee, and they subsequently recommended this particular proposal to go before the committee for approval. And with that, I will turn it back over to Chair Harper for next actions.
Thank you. So we definitely appreciate that. It was rather interesting reading from what Western Kentucky. I like that there's some kind of a combination of both in class and out and things like that. So I again, for me, not knowing what the universities were going to present, I was appreciative of what was presented there. All right, next, I guess we'll have an update on the statewide portal.
Well, Chair Harper, I promise I'm not going to say anything else after this.
Okay,
but I would be remiss if I didn't say this is an historic event, the first one in the United States with higher education doing this at this level. And this has been years in looking at it. As you all know, we have an advanced diversity policy that takes in everything, including diversity of thought, politically, diversity of people, diversity of everything. And it's really going to the heart of good learning. And this is a scaffolding process that Dr. Offit and Travis and others have put together, and faculty from all over the state, that would truly allow a third-party look at whether or not we're going to the heart of learning in our state. And so I would be remiss if this is real. This is one of my dreams come true after working on this, as Travis Powell can tell you, for years, trying to make something like this happen. So yeah, I just wanted to take this moment and say, Dawn and Travis and all your team and all the people around the state that made this go to where it needs to go, I appreciate it. And this is not your classic way of thinking about diversity training or diversity teaching. This really is the classic way of saying, no matter where you're coming from, no matter where you're going, if you will, this is not about trying to teach you how to think. I mean, teach you what to think. It's about teaching you how to think, and it's about learning, and it's about higher order learning. So I would, if you haven't read this in great detail, you really should. So this institution, there will be a whole lot more of these coming, obviously, but this institution being the first one is a mark, and I just didn't want to let my failing voice not at least sound out a cheer to this institution and to Dawn and your crew. So thank you, Chair.
Okay. And it's kind of interesting. I wondered whether, since this is the first, if now the other universities are going to use this and benchmark off it. I don't know. But again, being the first in definitely is something new. And I guess we will need to vote on this request.
Lori, this is Richard. Do you have time for another quick question?
Oh, please.
Yeah, and I appreciate Dr. Thompson's comments. Dr. Offit, thank you for your for briefing us on that. I know there's a lot there, and there's more involved than what I understand, and it sounds like a good effort, to Dr. Thompson's point about not teaching how to think, or what to think rather, but how to think. But you mentioned one thing, and I'm just looking for a little clarity on one topic you meant, and I don't need it's probably a whole conversation, and there's a lot to it. But you'd mentioned the topic of grading with equity. I'm just wondering if you could just briefly explain, just very briefly, what does that mean? I'm trying to understand better what that would look like.
So if you allow me just a quick moment. In their proposal, what they are looking at is to make sure that when students submit their capstone projects, if they're submitting any research products, that any type of particular perceived barrier from individuals who might come from low-income backgrounds or from our diverse student backgrounds, that they're looking to make sure that the students are treated with the equitable process of grading. By that, I mean that they're looking to make sure that there are no outside barriers that are influencing how they might grade that particular capstone or grade that particular research project. So if we're looking to do some type of self-assessment, making sure that there are no biases that they have as individuals in terms of being a faculty member that are influencing how they are giving that particular grade for the students. So being able to make sure that they are doing that self-reflective work to make sure that they are knowing who it is that they are when they show up to the classrooms for their students, and making sure that they know who their students are so that they can mitigate any of those perceived biases, so that when they're actually grading, they're grading, based on, the content of what's given and not being influenced by some of those unconscious or implicit biases kind of thing.
And Richard, let me just throw it in here, make it even a little more general. When we talk about grading with equity, we're saying students come from all kinds of different backgrounds, based on all kinds of circumstances, right? Not just low income and race, but all kinds of things. A faculty member should not let his or her own philosophy influence the way that they look at that work. So grading it with equity really looks at who the student is and where he or she's coming from, and not assume that student needs to reflect ideology, philosophy, race, gender, whatever, of that particular faculty member. So this goes to the heart of learning in my book. As a professor now for way over 3 decades, hard to believe. But I came in contact with all different kinds of people that may or may not believe what I did or look like me. I could not let my internal biases influence the way that I treated that student or allowed him or her to learn based on their base. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. Thank you. I probably would have done better in my English classes if politics and personal preferences weren't infused in some of my papers, but I hear what you're saying.
Well, and that's
I do understand, but yeah.
That's really crucial, I think, for all of us to look at. So it's really not coming from, for an example, of political ideology. It's taking political ideology out of it, even, and saying that it doesn't matter where you're coming from or what religion you have or whatever you have. This should be about learning. This should be about growth. It should be about how you think or the way you can grow in your thinking. And that's truly the heart of cultural competence. I tell people, cultural isn't just about race or ethnicity or gender philosophy. It's really about all those things that make us up who we are from whatever backgrounds that we have. And so that's the richness I love about our policy, is that we are not leaning any kind of way other than toward a student's ability to learn to his or her maximum ability within the setting that we promised them that we would help them to learn. Madam Chair, way too much talking on my part. I'll be quiet now, I promise.
It's all right. It's much appreciated. Thank you all. Any other questions or discussions? So we do need to have a vote on Western Kentucky's cultural competency credential certification. So I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate that. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Thank you. Motion carries. All right. Well, now we'll move on to our state web portal. So over the last few years, we've recognized the gap in Kentucky's ability to counsel students transitioning from high school to college. Today, we'll get a glimpse at the work that's begun on the state web portal being headed by CPE staff, Miss Amanda Ellis. Amanda, I will turn that over to you, please.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. I'm really happy to be able to come back and give you an update. We talked about this when I first came on board at CPE, and reading historical documents from your retreats prior to all the COVID days, a desire to really create a web portal that increases access for students of all ages and from all walks of life to be able to pursue career aspirations or even see themselves as pursuing career aspirations. And so we've worked really hard to lay out some foundational work, and I'm so happy to introduce you to Brett Foster. You can see he's popped up on the screen. We're really looking into, first of all, the feedback you all provided over a year ago about what you really like to see, the things that we're missing that we don't have that other states have. And we really want to increase equitable access to college accessibility and career accessibility. And so we are really, really proud and excited to say we have partnered with KY Stats, which we would have to do regardless because of their incredible data. We are if you are not aware, Kentucky is basically the golden child of data, longitudinal data. We can track students from preschool through workforce to know what their outcomes are 7 years after high school graduation, several years after college graduation, if they graduated. So it is time to act on those as tools to really help folks pursue a post-secondary track. And so we're working with KY Stats and KDE, and then other partners will be coming on board to really move this work forward. And so we just want to give you a brief overview of our work. As you know, Chair Harper, we have a lot of work going on with the continuum, and we had given you all an update in September, the overview. So hopefully with ASI, we're going to be able to focus on one new thing each time just to keep you all updated on the work that we are doing. There are a lot of moving parts that I think are moving in the direction that align beautifully with our strategic agenda and the vision that Dr. Thompson and the CPE has laid before us on the expectations of really what we should accomplish. And so I appreciate this time today. And Brett, I'd like to welcome you if you want to briefly introduce yourself and just give us an update of where we are.
Well, Madam Chair and the committee, I'm very honored to be speaking to you today. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to be real brief. The main thing that I want to follow up with what Dr. Ellis said is that we want to remove all barriers for all Kentuckians to get into a post-secondary institution. So we just want to make sure that if you are interested and are willing and wanting, there's not going to be anything that stands in your way from having the resources to be able to learn how to do that. So just real quick about me, 20 years in K-12 education, taught middle school with Dr. Ellis for a couple of years, and she was a principal of the school district, and I was at the central office. We worked together closely for many, many years there. In the last 5 years, I've been doing communications and marketing for a large nonprofit where we had over 35,000 unique people hit our website every month. And so trying to build this new website is going to be something that's going to be challenging, but something I'm excited about and really grateful for the opportunity.
And just so you know, just to add really briefly, is that one of the things that we are being very intentional about, and this has been brought up in the ASI committee today, is our audience. We are very intentional about our audience. It's not just for high school students, but we have focus groups that are being planned out to really capture the usability and functionality of what high school students would use, what adult learners would use and need to pursue that pathway, military veterans as well. And so Brett has worked hard to get together some focus groups, and we'll keep you updated. This is very new. We kicked this off a couple of months ago, but I do want you to know that we are very in tune to what you all have recommended. And we have reached out to Vidya. We know that she was very interested in this work, and we'll hopefully get a one-on-one with her to kind of hear her ideas as well and her perspective. But just wanted to give you an update and answer any questions you all may have.
Further questions? No, thank you so much for the update. We appreciate it. Look forward to progress as we continue down this road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. So last up on our agenda today is an update on the work since our new strategic agenda was approved in November. And Lee is going to provide us that update.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good morning, everybody. So as you know, the new strategic agenda has established 5 priority areas, which will drive higher education innovation through 2030. So the first certainly is improving college affordability. The second is, and this gets to what Brett and Amanda were talking about, strengthening transitions to higher education, both from high school, but also for adult learners. The third area is focusing deeply on student success in post-secondary programs. The fourth area, building out on that, is to ensure that students graduate from our post-secondary institutions ready for the workforce, and that we provide clear pathways to meaningful careers. And then the fifth area is really an area that President Thompson embraced early on, and that is improving the public's understanding about the value of post-secondary education. So just wanted to remind folks of sort of how the agenda was structured as we're moving forward. Also, the agenda established new performance indicators to monitor progress, both at the state and the campus level. And this agenda continues to embrace the big educational attainment goal. So 60% of working age Kentuckians with a high quality post-secondary credential by the year 2030. In terms of implementation, there's a lot going on. We have finalized the document that should be in your materials, and the distribution process of the agenda has begun. We're sending it out to legislators, other key decision makers in the state, higher ed institutions, faculty, and others. We are planning a virtual launch event in early February. We're going to finalize that date and get that out to folks very soon. It'll be a webinar, and we hope to have a number of speakers talking about the value of post-secondary education and how this new agenda will really drive our work through 2030. We are working with CPE staff and others on state level implementation plans for each of the 11 objectives in the agenda. So we certainly don't just want to put this agenda out without a thoughtful approach to moving each of the objectives and strategies forward. So these will be 3-year implementation plans. This committee and the rest of the board will do a deep dive into the agenda. In the fall of 24, of course, we'll be presenting information along the way, but the fall of 24 will be the first big evaluation. And so we will address and change those implementation plans and strategies as needed at that time. And then finally, we are working with campuses on two things. The first is to develop campus level strategies. So not only do we have state level strategies, but based on the unique characteristics of each campus, they're going to bring their own strategies to the table to advance each of the objectives. They are also working with us on developing performance targets for each of the key indicators. Those will be targets that will be set for the next 3 years, looking at things like graduation rates, enrollment, affordability indicators, a number of different indicators that are included in the agenda. I'm happy to answer any questions about the agenda. We certainly will have a more detailed report to this committee at your March 30th meeting. We'll bring to you at that time all of the implementation plans as well as the performance goals. So, Madam Chair, that's my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions? If not, I appreciate it. All these documents are in our board portal, and it's, I guess, after stepping away, after approving it back in November, and then stepping away and rereading it over the last day or so. Again, it was a very large piece of work done by some great CPE staff. So again, it's just it's a framework that now we're building everything else behind. So the staff still has a lot going on. So thank you so much for the update, Lee, and to your team. If there are no additional comments or questions, just wanted to throw it out there before we close out. Okay. If not, our next scheduled meeting of the committee is set for March 22nd. And do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Here, I'll have a second.
Second.
All in favor to adjourn, say aye.
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 All right. Thank you all for your time today. I appreciate everything that you all do and commit to CPE.